we're going to focus on is not intentionally imposing our values on them and judging, saying, well, those beliefs, those values are wrong. These are the correct ones you need to have. That's a very different issue. And we'll talk more about that later. So this question of what happens if the client's religious beliefs or values are completely contradictory to yours. Like what if a client believes LGBTQ populations are making a choice that's wrong? How do you handle that as a clinician? You know, we could do a whole webinar just on that topic, but I'll just share, because I think it's a great important point and a great question. I'll just share what's relevant to treatment. So I've had clients who say things that I don't agree with or that I think are wrong. You know, if I had a client say to me, you know, all those, and they want to ask you a bunch of questions, you have the right to share that information. You have the right to not share that information. I mean, to me, my first response is often, well, tell me how it would be helpful to you for me to share this information with you or to answer that question. And then sometimes when it is relevant. So I spent much of my career working with children, adolescents, and families, and invariably people want to know, do you have children? And you know, I could refuse to answer that. I said, well, that's private, or why do you ask? And frequently it's understood why they ask. Is like, well, do you have any experience, any firsthand experience with this? And again, I might say, oh, well, in terms of experience, let me tell you about my training and my credentials and my work experience. And by sharing that, many of the times it's answered their question. So they don't then need to know, well, but do you have it on everything? I don't know everything. I don't know the answer to everything. I might be faced with challenging situations, dilemmas, areas where I'm unsure how to proceed. That's where consultation can be very helpful. So this next topic we're going to save, and just want to check and make sure there are no questions up to this point. Let's see. How would one find such trainings and professionals with which to consult? So as I highlight, so here we have for psychologists, there's the American Psychological Association has all these different divisions, which are sort of like interest groups. And there's one on spirituality and religion. And they actually publish a journal, and they have a bulletin or newsletter. They have a listserv. They have presentations and trainings and workshops. And I would go to their website option of accepting that. And I might even look at, who else in their life, I'd mentioned this earlier, who else could they ask? And who else have they asked? And what other resources are there for them? And how might my role be different? Maybe they don't need everyone in their life praying for them. Maybe different people in their life have different roles, and mine's a little different than some others. So that's a possibility. And one person writes, but we do have to look to expand our comfort as clinicians. Yeah, if you're really narrow, if like I only have this very rigid view of this is what I do as a mental health professional, that can overlook some of what we're talking about. Right, and so this is a good point also about being kind, being caring, being empathic. Another person writes therapist, authenticity.